okay? You can fit into the standard supply and demand. So for the standard supply and demand, we talked about this last class, right? We talked about how normally in a supply and demand curve, it's normally concave down, right? And we talked about how we have this equilibrium price here, and anything before that is probably too cheap. People don't think they should buy it. Anything after that, it's so expensive, people don't want to spend the money, right? So this max here is it's called the equilibrium price. It's like the best price for your product. And then we talked about how at the x-intercept, that's when I start going into debt. Is that familiar? How many of you guys have been able to get your graph and it looks like that? It's concave down like that. Anyone? A couple? 2 or 3? If it ended up looking like that, then that's great. So then what you're going to do is find the maximum, right? Like we did in class last time. And if you can't remember, I'll go through it again. And everything's going to work out normally. Everybody with me? Okay, the other option is if your supply and demand curve ended up being concave up instead. Anybody's fit into that? Yeah? Okay, are you guys with me? This is the lesson part. Okay, so if your supply and demand curve is concave up, it might seem kind of weird because it's like, what, I just keep raising the price and more people buy them? Okay, so there's two types of things where a situation like this can happen. Okay, the first one is it's called a Giffen good. We're doing a really short economics lesson. Okay, a Giffen good is when your product is a necessity. So for example, like milk. No matter how expensive milk gets, I'm probably going to buy it, right? Or for people that are diabetic, insulin. No matter how much they charge for insulin, I have to buy it, right? So that's one example of how a supply and demand curve can be concave up. Because no matter that it's getting bigger and bigger, it's a need, it's a necessity. Okay, the other type of good where it could be concave up is called a Veblen good. So these are the kind of like, exceptions to the standard rule. So on this one, the type of good has like a snob value, is kind of what it's called. Or it's about like class, kind of. Like, for example, have you ever seen like in a movie, or maybe you know somebody, that if a car is more expensive, they're going to buy it just for the status value of it, right? That's the other type of good, is a Veblen good. If any of your products are, like have this concave up, I'm not sure roses and snow cones and quesadillas can count as a necessity. Most of your products aren't going to probably be Giffen goods if it's concave up. But a Veblen good, maybe if I'm selling roses, and I want like the best money can buy because I want to treat my girlfriend right? Then I'm going to spend more money. I might buy something just because it's more money. That's the idea of a Veblen good, okay? The other example, did anybody's in here end up with a linear situation, just a straight line? They couldn't find a curve at all? Nobody in this class? Okay. All these supply and demand curves have to be quadratic. Sometimes if you end up with a linear situation, all that means is there's just not enough info, and you'd have to make your survey bigger. But it sounds like anybody in here doesn't have to deal with that. So your good is either going to be a standard good, and to find your best possible price, you can just find the maximum value, okay? Or it's one of these type of goods, that's why it's concave up, and I'll show you how to find the maximum value on your calculator right now. Online students, I'll do that when I video calculator stuff later since I couldn't get this one to work.